Good evening. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Kyra.
And I'm Dean.
And today we were going to do something completely different, but we got a few messages from people, and we know that, let's say like in November, people weren't thinking about taking scouting trips, and now all of a sudden people are taking scouting trips. They're going to be here quickly. We've already had one friend come through, and we've got a couple more friends coming through. And so we've also got a few people that have notified us via email that they're doing scouting trips. So what we decided to do was go back to the scouting trip, and we're going to do a step-by-step trip plan.
Right. Before, in a previous video, we talked to you about what a scouting trip is and why people take them. This time we're going to go into more of the nitty-gritty about steps to take to make your scouting trip a success and also a lot of fun.
So before we start, we want to give people time to grab their computer. If you're a pen and paper person, grab that pen and paper. If you're going to take notes on your phone, grab that, which might be hard. If you're watching this on your phone, you may want to stop and go do something else. And feel free to watch this as often as you need to if you find the information helpful, which I'm sure you will. Okay, so Dean is going to start, and we're just going to roll down through things. And I'm going to warn you, we are going to be looking down a little bit because we were talking back and forth about this, and we made some little notes in the margins and stuff. So, if you see us looking down, it's because we're trying not to miss anything so you guys can plan the best scouting trips possible.
All right. So the first thing to do when you're planning a scouting trip is to plan for the time off of work that you will need. I was lucky in that I had about 4 or 5 weeks vacation time coming to me that I hadn't used. So I planned well in advance. I put in for the vacation time with my boss. I didn't actually, because I wasn't sure at the time that we were actually going to be moving, I didn't let anybody know what we were doing. It was a vacation, a long vacation. In some cases, for me, it was a working vacation. But what we did was we just planned for the time off. And Kyra was working as a tour guide. So for her, she was working on a contract basis, not a full-time employee. She was making her own way, so she had to clear her calendar.
So basically, I just told people, I'm not available till February 10th or whatever. We were back, I think, in early February, but I knew we would need to talk through some things. And I wanted a little time off when I got back. Those international flights, they make you tired.
So we treated it like a vacation because it was a lot of fun. We were exploring new places, but, and per the people at work, until we got back, that's all they knew we were doing. Now, as soon as we knew that we wanted to move, I did what I think is the right thing, and I let my boss know. It wasn't about trying to hide anything, but it was also about not painting myself into a corner if the plans that we were thinking about didn't come to fruition.
And it turned out that everything moved a little faster than we thought, so that was good. But this is something that's at your discretion, because we also know people who, told their bosses they were leaving, and then they let them go right away. So your boss better than anybody. If you are still currently working, if you're retired or freelancing, this isn't an issue for you, but I just want to give that caveat right away. So the second thing we're going to talk about is, what is your budget for the scouting trip and how should you plan it out? Okay, so you're going to have your airfare to and from. One thing I want to mention is that a lot of people will fly in and out of one city, and it's really easy to fly, let's say, into Lisbon and out of Madrid if you're looking at both cities, or vice versa. If you're looking at Spain and Portugal and you want to spend time in both places, you go into the, like Google Flights or wherever you're looking, and put in multi-city, and that's going to let you book into one city and out of another city. Let's say into Lisbon and out of Porto, something like that. So you're going to want to think about how much is your airfare. That's going to be the first thing. And then are you going to stay in hotels, Airbnbs, VRBO, whatever your plan is. And I also want to mention, think about where you see yourself eventually going, because what we did was we stayed in town because we knew we wanted to live in town. We wanted to be close enough to everything to walk back and forth. And so if you want to be in the country and you want a little bit of room, try to find someone who's running an Airbnb that's a little, like 10 minutes outside if you're planning on bringing your car or whatever you're thinking about doing there.
And to segue from that, you really should think about what area or what country or countries are calling to you. Because you're only going to have a limited time, and you probably will have a budget that won't allow for you to do multiple scouting trips. So plan accordingly. If you want to visit Portugal and you're dead set on living in Portugal, then try a few different areas that meet up with what your needs and desires are, per weather, per the type of town, per walkability. But if you haven't decided between Portugal and Spain, then set aside enough time to go to both areas and not to be rushed. Because if you're rushing, you're gonna miss the joy of the area. You might miss the place that you're supposed to be. If you are pressed for time, then you're gonna feel more stress than relaxation. And I'm going to also recommend that you use the scouting trip as a relaxing trip. There's a lot of things to do, a lot of things to learn, but you won't really learn about where you want to live unless you let yourself relax into it.
And spend time. It's so important to give yourself 3 or 4 days, I think, in each place at least. And yourself, you may need a week in each place. Everybody's different. We had traveled to Europe on and off. We were doing like every 2 years, every 3 years, a regular vacation to Europe. So we had a really good idea of what we wanted. And we know a few people that moved here sight unseen completely. So, that is something that is also an option. The fourth thing we want to talk about, number 4, is how to think about your areas. So when you close your eyes and you're dreaming about retirement, whether it's early retirement, later retirement, whatever, where do you see yourself? Do you see yourself on a beach? Do you see yourself by a mountain lake? Do you see yourself in a walkable town? Do you see yourself in a big city? These are, all things that you should think about when you are working on this scouting trip, and things to consider. Do I like to eat out? For instance, Dean and I don't want to cook every night. So we wanted to live in a walkable city where we could walk a couple blocks and go and have a nice dinner and then walk a couple blocks back, and we weren't worried about having to get in the car and drive everywhere. We've now lived here just a little over 6 months. We're going to do a 6-month update show, and we haven't had a car, and our town does have Uber as well. So that helps quite a bit. And think about that. Do you want a town that's big enough that has Uber? Caldish, I think, is about 50,000 people. So think about that. If you're someone who's used to using Uber, or you want to be able to use it to go to the supermarket and buy a few more things, you got to have a town big enough for an Uber. So these are some of the little things that we forget, and it can be really helpful for making your dream town your actual town.
All right, so now you've figured out how much time you've gotten off of work. Again, for us, we were able to do a month. I know not everybody has that, and you really do need to take that into consideration. If you only have 2 weeks vacation a year, use it wisely.
And this is step 5, by the way.
So if you're using it wisely, you've gotten the time off of work, you really should look at narrowing down your choices. Narrowing down the cities that, or the towns, or the countries that you really are interested in doing, because again, you're going to have a limited amount of time. So if you narrow your plans down to these, 4 or 5 cities in 2 different countries, then you can plan how much time you can spend in each. Then you can also plan your budget, because you'll know where the hotels are. You'll know where you're flying into and out of. And then you'll actually, like I said before, be able to relax into the place, because you know where you're looking. A lot of people that I know have taken kind of a scattershot approach, just throw everything against the wall and see where you want to go. And sometimes that'll work. Not quite our style, but we find that planning and narrowing down the areas that you really want to look in allows you to make like a bullet point list of the things that you really want, the things that you don't want, allows you to plan financially, and allows you to not get caught up in the stress of trying to find that place to live. Do the work ahead of time.
Yes. For instance, we have a daily farmers market here in Caldish, and I found that out looking online before I ever got here. And I realized part of what was going to be joyful for me, because we do cook a lot here, but obviously not every night, because sometimes we go out. I love going to that daily farmers market. It is awesome. And, you can find any kinds of fruit and vegetables. There are a lot of things I have to ask, what is this? What is that? So, just something to think about. If that is something that's going to give you joy, then something to think about looking for. So how many of these places that you have now picked out, this is number 6, is it feasible to actually visit? And how close together are the places that you want to go? When we came, we did, Lisbon, Porto, Caldish, and we had 1 or 2 other cities that we were also going to visit. But by the time we had spent about 24 hours in Caldish, we knew that, this was our city. We love Lisbon, we love Porto, but this was, where we wanted to live on a day-to-day basis. So, think about taking trains between, the different places you're going to be. How long is the train ride? Or buses are also really big here, and you can get pretty much anywhere by bus in Europe. So think about those options and how far one city is from the other. For instance, we're 1 hour from Lisbon, so that was an easy trip for us.
So once you've narrowed down, this is number 7, once you've narrowed down your city search, and you've kind of put in all of the things that you wanted to have in your hometown or your home city, and if you've seen that they're available to you in the places that you want to go, then you can start looking at various search engines to actually narrow down the type of house or apartment that you want to live in. There are search engines like Idealista, which shows you rentals and homes for sale, and they have a lot of standalone houses and apartments, both for rent and sale. And you can actually start seeing what's available in the city or cities that you're interested in, and you can start seeing the pricing.
Now, keep in mind, with Idealista, in Portugal specifically, if you are looking for a home, the home may still be there by the time you finally get around to your trip. Houses have a tendency to stay on the market a lot longer in Portugal than they do in the US and Canada. So just be aware of that. Whereas rentals here go very fast because everybody needs them for their visa appointment. So a lot of people will come in January like we did. We knew we weren't moving till March, and we paid for that apartment the whole time till we got back, and we were, at VFS ready for our appointment. We had that apartment, we had the address and everything. So that's how a lot of people do it. So the first person who sees the apartment usually has dibs on it. I might have mentioned this in our earlier video, and you don't really have time to look around. So just be aware of that.
And if you're going into a lease situation, you are not locked into it forever. It's important for your visa to have an address in country. If it's not ideal, don't worry about it. You don't have to be there forever, but you do need the four walls and the roof around you and the address on the door in order to get your visa. So if the place that you find is your dream home, great. If you're renting or purchasing, if it's not, it's also not the end of the world. You just need to be there for, 1 year, maybe 2.
Mm-hmm. Also, I want to mention, it's kind of hard to get a 1-year lease. What most Americans think about when they come is, I want to get a 1-year lease. 1-year leases are really hard to find, but know that if you get a 2-year lease, after 1 year, depending on what the terms of your contract are, you can get out of it. For instance, I think ours is 60 days. We have to give our landlord 60 days notice. And depending on what that contract says, is when you're able to get out of it. So booking hotels or staying with friends. One thing, this is a mistake that we made. Book hotels that can be canceled on short notice in case you are in a city you are liking and you need to stay longer, because that's what happened to us. We had booked another city that we were interested in, and we were unable to cancel it quickly enough to get all of the money back. So I would look for places that you can cancel. If you're staying with friends, of course, it's not a big deal. But if you are, booking yourself into individual hotels, try to get stuff that you can cancel within a day in case you're in the place, you're meeting people, you're jiving with them, and you're feeling like, okay, this is it, this is my place. You can cancel the next place and stay where you are for the rest of the trip, or for a few more days, and then figure out where you're going next.
That's exactly what happened to us. We had planned, as Kyra said, to visit a couple of other cities after Caldish. And we got here, we met some of the expat community, we almost immediately met some of the locals and realized that we really loved it here and felt like we needed to spend more time here. And also we started pretty much immediately looking for apartments. So we didn't have time to go to these other cities because we knew we wanted to be here. So we lost our deposit. But you don't have to do that if you plan accordingly. And and be prepared for that surprise. For us, it was a very pleasant surprise to find a place that we loved so quickly and to be able to find an apartment. And we were that couple that got first dibs on the apartment because we were the first people who saw it. But it had only been on the market for about 2 hours when we saw it. And there were other people already scheduled to see it after us. So we really did luck out.
Yeah, we did. The other thing I wanted to mention is talk to friends and family. If you've got friends and family that have already moved and they're in a place that they like, definitely chat with them. And I would also recommend, looking for groups on Facebook or, some of the other online sites where people are talking about, what's going on in that place. There's a great group on Facebook called Americans and Friends PT, which is specific to Portugal. And they have, lists of, every single thing that you need to move to Portugal. So I would highly recommend, finding a group. And then individual cities have people in blah, blah, blah city. And so you can go in and start talking to some of the locals. And even before you get on the plane, you will have people that you can talk to in those cities who know that you're coming to Porto or you're coming to Madrid. And you'll have people that will meet up with you and discuss their honest experiences that they've had in the city, and that will really help you make a lot of decisions. And people are usually really open about whatever mistakes they've made.
So I want to reiterate the importance of pre-gaming your trip a little bit.
This is number 9.
So you have Idealista, among others, to look at available apartments or available homes if you're going to purchase. And you really should take the time well in advance of your trip to see the price range that you're looking in, to see the idiosyncrasies of housing in any particular area, to see if you really like the area, if you really like the apartments in the area. But know that when you're renting, especially when you get to your city, the apartments that you've looked at online may not be available. But there'll very likely be other apartments very much like the one that you did, that you liked, that will be available. And you can look in a particular price range. I would recommend getting in touch with a real estate agent as early on as you can in your trip, if you've settled on an area that you want to look at. And don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good as far as renting an apartment. Again, they go really, really quickly. In Portugal, it's a very competitive market for rentals especially, and it's only getting more competitive. So if you find a place and it's serviceable, at least for the immediate future, and you like it, I would take it simply because you will not have the time to look at 4 or 5 apartments. We have some very close friends who made that mistake early on, and they kept wanting to think about it and kept losing apartments. And finally, they just decided that they needed an apartment. There were a few days before their VFS appointment in the States, a few days before their visa appointment, at which they needed a lease. So they ended up taking an apartment sight unseen. And theirs worked out. It was a good apartment, but it might not always be that way. You might be taking the sight unseen apartment to get that local address, and it might not be something that you want.
Yeah, it might not be you. Like Dean and I, we always need to look at a place and get a feel for it, get a feel for the neighborhood, how close we are to everything. It would have been really hard, I think, for us to take an apartment sight unseen, but you do you. You know, if taking an apartment sight unseen is perfect for you, then, you know, by all power, go ahead. In order to rent or buy in Portugal, and we talked about this before, you will need a NIF, N-I-F. And it is similar to a social security number, except all someone can do with it is pay your taxes. It's something you can get easily online before you come to Portugal. And we left a link, I think, in the scouting trip, our scouting trip number 1 that we did. We left a link in there. And the other thing I wanted to mention is, if you just have a little bit of money and you really are looking to get out, you don't care about the scouting trip, you just need to get out, I wanted to mention to check out House Sitter School with Stephanie Perry. This was one of the first things I did when we were looking at coming overseas. And I highly recommend trying House Sitter School, because while you are usually going to end up looking after a dog, a cat, some fish, whatever it is, you are also not going to need to find an accommodation for the time that you are in that place. And if you plan it right, you can actually book your house sits to a way that you are also checking out the cities that you want to go to. So if that's something that works for you and you want to, you know, take the time to plan that out, I would highly recommend doing that. And I would check out House Sitter School anyway, because it's a good way for you to bop around to different places feed the cat in the morning and have a great place to stay, and then, still have time to explore the city that you're house sitting in. So something to think about. Two of the biggest places for house sitting are San Francisco and London. So
Kyra had mentioned the NIF, and we realized that when you're getting ready to uproot your life, it can be very stressful. You might not know the first decision that you need to make. You might not know the first step that you need to take. But if you take steps one at a time, you will eventually get there. A very easy step to take first, if you're thinking of Portugal, is going online and getting the NIF. It takes a few minutes, and you will really feel a sense of accomplishment at having done something and having taken that first step. It can be overwhelming, but if you take one step at a time, you'll get there.
Yeah. And we also want to say, please put in comments if there are other things that you would like us to talk about, as far as like moving to Portugal, moving abroad, being in Caldish, anything that you have questions about. We are here to answer them for you. And our email is also listed if you want to email us, which people have been doing and talking about things. And we have a very dear friend who talked to us today and was like, I'm getting my NIF. I already applied for it. So, we are here to help you. And we really enjoy doing these videos. We started doing it, kind of just for a lark. And now we're like, actually, we're having fun doing this, just sharing information with you. So thank you so much for staying to the end.
If you like us, please subscribe to our channel. It doesn't cost you anything. Please like the video. And if you haven't watched some of the others, we have a few other videos that might be informative. And again, please leave something in comments if there's a particular subject that you'd like us to cover.
Because that's kind of what we did this week, is we got some feedback, and so we did a totally different show than what we were thinking about doing. And
we're also trying to get to 500 subscribers, because once we have that many subscribers, we're going to do
a live show.
We're going to do a live show with a Q&A where people can actually pretty much ask us anything. And we want to have enough subscribers to make it worth the time that it'll take. So please subscribe and tell your friends, and we look forward to seeing you on our next video.
And for anybody who's watching this and you're thinking, oh, you didn't mention this step, put it in the comments so that other people who are also doing their scouting trips can benefit from your information. So everybody, have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you out on the road.